Shauna, it's been a long time. So to
Mhm.
give our audience some backstory, we grew up together, but this is ages ago, a long, long time ago. So West Hampton Drive, Philadelphia, a long,
Yeah.
long time
In the
ago
early
in
70s.
the early 70s.
Well, 69 when we were born for a few
Well,
years out and
yeah,
for a
yeah.
few years.
And
Yeah.
so you just totally told everybody how old we are. So
Oh,
with that being
sorry.
the
Don't do
case,
the math.
it's okay. I'm bringing people to the conversation who have been impacted by suicide, and you have a story to tell. And so I want to give you this space and on my YouTube channel to kind of share your story and to help people figure out how they can work through the healing process. So, Shauna, this is all about you.
Oh,
What happened?
thank you. So my story starts back in 2003. I can't believe it's been more than 20 years already when I received the biggest shock that I think will be the biggest shock in my life, no matter what else happens going forward, is that my brother took his life and he had bipolar disorder. And I want everyone to know that having bipolar disorder or any mental illness does not mean it's a death sentence, because I also have a positive story to share, which is my own. So just to set the stage there. My brother was always outgoing, very funny, cracked me up, very entertaining, always just seemed happy. I mean, I've seen him depressed here and there over the years, but I always knew an external circumstance that related to it. He was going through a divorce. His business was failing. Well, those were the most recent ones. Um, so I didn't think he had depression, and I didn't equate his bubbliness and energetic humor to a manic episode. I was also not educated about that stuff back then. But when I found out he had bipolar disorder, it kind of it put all those happy moments seeing him like under a shadow, and it put the depressed moments I've seen in more of a context. And and for him to take his life, I actually don't remember being angry, but I certainly couldn't understand it. I mean, he had a very young daughter. She was 4 at the time. Now she's 25 already. And I just I just knew I was going to be sad for a long time. I didn't know about mental health really or counseling or anything like that. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna I'll get through it eventually. Had no idea how, had no idea how long it would take. I knew I would still be grieving forever, which and I still am, although I certainly am coping with it a lot better than, when it initially happened. So way back then, when he did take his life, my son was 7. I think it was 7 at the time. And I I agreed to go to therapy because my husband at the time and my mom said, "You're not emotionally available for your son." I wasn't neglecting him. I mean, I took care of the basics, but emotionally not there. So anything for my son, of course, I'm going to do. So I agreed to go to therapy. I was diagnosed with depression. Therapist recommended I go on medication. I was resistant to that. And again, it's because of lack of education at the time, thinking that's going to stop me from grieving. How can I honor my brother's memory if I'm not going to grieve him because medicine's going to stop me? Well, I learned that that's not the case. Unfortunately, it's been very effective and I'm still on it, will be for the rest of my life, is that it takes the edge off. It enables me to function. I still get depressed sometimes, but I'm not to the extremes like I had been, which now I had need to fast forward to my own crisis. So in 2012, so this is about 9 years after my brother passed away, I had a lot of just negative things going on. And when I mention each one in isolation, some people thought, well, everyone goes through that. And it's true. I had been, by that time, I had been divorced twice. I tried dating and nothing was working out, and it affected my confidence. So that was, just the way I was. And I had no social life for the longest time. And all those things just accumulated. And then my brain also decided to dwell on losing my brother, so more pain to deal with. So that cumulative effect made me more and more depressed, spiraling down and down. And then at some point, my mind was saying, you need to end this pain. You're a burden to everyone. You don't deserve to live, that kind of thing, which shocked me. And I told myself, literally talking to myself, you need to think of the positives. You can't do this to your family. But that voice was very insistent and it drowned out all my efforts to focus on the positive. So I did try to take my life and tried to cut my wrist. Fortunately, I was not good at it at all. And but even more fortunate, actually miraculously, is I had the breakthrough. Let me backtrack a little bit. I totally understand what my brother went through because I went through it myself. It's like it, and I remember my therapist years ago describing it this way, but you don't really grasp. And I'm not saying I'd want anybody to grasp it firsthand. I would rather have them learn from me and others and try to prevent it in their own lives and their loved ones. But it's like a tunnel around your head that does not let any light in, any positive in. I don't know why that tunnel was broken. And I'm not a spiritual person, but whatever that force was, I am so grateful for. And I realized I can't do this. I need to get help. So I contacted my parents. I said, I want you to take me to Carrier Clinic the next day because I already was working where I work now, which is a mental health trade association. I knew about Carrier Clinic, an inpatient facility, and we went there. And within a few days, I was transformed, and I saw others transform in front of me. I don't. I'm guessing it doesn't. Not that I was totally cured, and I guess I never will be because, like I said, I'll be on the antidepressant the rest of my life. I'm afraid to go off it. But within those few days, I went from I am not doing this aerobic exercise thing on the first day because I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm miserable, I withdrawn, don't want to interact with anyone. 5 days later, or however long I know it was less than a week I was there. I was by that time I had done music therapy, art therapy. I opened up in group. We had individual therapy, and they connected me with the therapist. And I tried different therapists since then on an outpatient basis. Again, it probably takes longer. Everyone's different. Medication's different for everyone. I just been really fortunate, and it gave me a even greater appreciation for the people we represent in the trade association where I work. We're still on there 17 and a half years later. So it made me a stronger advocate. And I'm glad to have opportunities like through this podcast and other interviews I've done, getting articles published, and through my work and my volunteer work with Attitudes in Reverse, which is all about mental health education, suicide prevention education, to help people. So that's why I'm very comfortable sharing my story. I'm sure I couldn't have done this 20 years ago, but as time went on, I'm glad the opportunities arose that this is where I'm meant to be.
Shauna, one, thank you for sharing the story. I know stories like this are generally difficult, but as people kind of grow through the healing process, they are more comfortable, at the very least, being able to share. And I think the message behind your conversation or this conversation is to help other people understand that even if they're going through that, like you said, this dark tunnel, that there is hope and light somewhere out there. It's having to find it that's really the critical piece. Now, you said a couple of things I want to refer back to. One, you called your parents.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
You called your parents. You said,
Oh, yeah.
"Mom, Dad, I need help." You called out for people and they were there to help you. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, how vital do you think that was to you being able to successfully get past this pain and discomfort?
It's huge. Before they knew, actually, I didn't even admit to them I tried to take my life. But they see me very depressed, even just a couple days before it happened, because we were supposed to celebrate my dad's birthday. I did drive my son to my parents' house, but I said, I'm not going. You go without me. They tried to make me go. I got angry, locked myself in a bedroom, which I guess sounds kind of immature. But I said, listen, you will have a better time without me. They didn't understand. So the way they reacted made me angry because at the time I couldn't separate myself to say, all right, they don't understand.
Right.
I shouldn't get angry at them. But anyway, so when I actually, I think I emailed them because I was too emotional to talk. And I don't remember exactly what I wrote, but I know I did not I said I was just very depressed and I know I need help. I'll never forget when my dad visited me at the carrier clinic. I kept my sleeves down to hide the scars or cut marks, and he never noticed them. But the next day, my mom came with my son, and I subconsciously raised my sleeves because I got hot, and my son noticed, and he's like, "What's that all about?" So I told him, and I promised I would never try that again. I said, "But that's why I'm here. I'm here to get help, so I won't, get to that state anymore." And my son, he's always been like beyond his years and maturity. I remember he didn't freak out. He's just like, okay, that's like kind of like that's good to know. I don't remember exactly what he said. Then a couple of days after that, my mom picks me up on when I'm discharged from carrier and she takes me out to lunch and she says, "How can you do this to me? We already lost your brother." I was like, "Mom, I understand what Mike went through." And I told her what I said earlier about the tunnel and everything. And I said, it's nothing that I can snap out of. My brain just doesn't work that way. But I'm glad I'm getting the help. I mean, I guess I said something to that effect. And it's a very hard lesson to learn, but I was not that I would wish this on anybody, of course. And not saying I wish I went through this, but on the bright side, that light at the end of the tunnel includes a better understanding and no one's saying snap out of it. The only thing that we promised, because I still get very depressed once in a while, nothing like what happened back then. I text my mom and say, "I am not up to talking right now. I'll be okay. I'll text you again when I'm like through this." And that doesn't happen often, but at least so she doesn't get excessively worried that we're going to have a recurrence of that tragedy, that horrible situation. So
So, in your healing process, you have been, professionally speaking, part of like the mental health community in different aspects. How was that part of your life helpful in you understanding the broad scope of what it means to need a service in order to live? Can you talk about that just a little bit?
sure, that is an excellent question. When I started at the trade association, it was in 2006. It was 3 years after my brother passed away. And I didn't consciously reach for a trade association. I didn't even know they existed, or maybe I did, but didn't think about it. But I was always in a writing kind of job. I was bored where I was at the time. There happened to be this writing position at the trade association. And I'm like, that is where I'm meant to be. And I never wanted a job so badly. So very glad it worked out, obviously. And then, so it's a way of giving back, even though it's an indirect way. I mean, I'm not helping people through a clinical role or anything. I'm in a communications role. I'm doing advocacy. I'm doing member services. And the members are those providers of the mental health care services, addiction treatment also, although that's not my particular issue, but I've learned so much about mental illnesses and addictions and co-occurring disorders and so many challenges that so many people experience, and that our members provide not only a broad array of clinical services, but also other support services for those supported housing, education, job training. There are so many success stories out there that they're so inspiring. So I have the fulfilling role of sharing them, whether it's through our annual report or advocacy, press releases, newsletters, which also go to people we advocate to. So I'm really fortunate to have a job that well, I've always loved writing. So, and my dad said, "Your communications degree will never get to anywhere." Well, I proved him wrong, which is an extra bonus. But it's so meaningful. I mean, it's so many people, I get the sense that, well, they go through a job because they have to make money and that's it. And they hate it. And they really, it's not the best part of their life. I mean, there are other very good parts of my life. I am in a great relationship. I'm engaged again. Things are great. But having to put so much time in a job is so much easier when you're passionate about what you do, as I'm sure you know, because you have all these great podcasts and your writing and everything you do. I've also, like I mentioned, not advertise. What's the word? Volunteer. I'm thinking advocate, and I don't know. My brain just went off in a weird direction. But anyway, attitudes in reverse or air, which I learned about through my work. We had a conference, which we do for our members and others who are not members, and happened to learn about this group and been on their board for, oh gosh, 11 years now. And I do communications for them too. And that group and the trade association, we work on things together, developed so many great friendships. I mean, there's so many mental health benefits to what I'm doing. And it just, it's so fulfilling. I'm running out of words, which I guess is good because I'm babbling. So,
Well, let me ask one more question and we'll call this a conversation.
okay.
Do you feel or think that you have a success story in your hands? So is this a success for you? And if so, how so?
It absolutely is. I mean, financial wealth was never a priority for me. I am living comfortably, which is great. But being able to use my writing skills to help people is phenomenal. I've gotten some responses to op-eds I've got published. I've done a couple videos for the trade association's advocacy campaigns, and I mean, mostly it is from people who I know through like a board member or somebody. But just knowing the possibility that someone who's really struggling, what I said might have resonated with that person and veered them off the path to a possible tragic outcome is so wow. I'm like I'm getting a lump in my throat just thinking about that possibility, and um I just hope that what I write, what I say in conversations, just any opportunity I have to help someone just means so so much. I hope that answered your question. I probably got off tangent, but
Shauna, that was a perfect end to this conversation. Thank you so much
thank you.
for
Really enjoyed
sharing.
it, and thank you so much.
Well, we're going to have another conversation, but maybe on another, on a brighter note.
Okay, sounds good.
Shauna, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.